Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Strange Days True Crime, where we look at stories of unsolved disappearances, murders, and unidentified in the hopes that one day they'll be solved. The strange unsolved disappearance of Dylan Koshman. Dylan Koshman was born on April 11th of 1987 and was the middle son of 5 siblings and also had a large extended family. Dylan would grow up in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada. Dylan's family said he was very family-orientated, friendly, kind, and fun. He was also into bodybuilding and played soccer. Dylan was especially close with his grandmother, and the pair had a special bond. When Dylan was older, he found a job with a company as an apprentice pipe fitter in Edmonton, Alberta, and would make the move from Moose Jaw to Edmonton around May of 2008. Dylan would move into a house with 2 of his cousins, Colin DeMason and Nick Koshman. Dylan was excited for his new adventure, and this would be the first time that Dylan had lived far away from his home in Moose Jaw. At first, Dylan didn't know many people, so he would spend a lot of his time at the gym. Things were going well for Dylan with his job, and he had begun dating a young woman by the name of Erin, who was attending college in Edmonton. Over the months that Dylan was dating Erin, problems began to arise between Dylan and his cousins, as they thought that with Dylan's girlfriend Erin spending more time at the house, that Dylan should be paying more for rent. It was stated that Dylan had told Erin that he was no longer enjoying living with his cousins and wanted to find a place for Erin and himself to live. On the night of October 11th of 2008, 21-year-old Dylan would disappear, never to be seen again. It is stated that on the night that Dylan disappeared, he had been drinking at his home with his cousin Nick, Nick's girlfriend, and another cousin of Dylan's named Cameron, who Dylan had invited over as it was the Thanksgiving weekend. After a heated argument between Dylan and Colin, it was stated that around 2 a.m., Dylan just left the house located near 104th Street and 33rd Avenue, Edmonton, in nothing but white skateboarding shoes, a dark-colored t-shirt, and jeans. According to Nick, it was just the 4 of them having some drinks, and Colin was not home at this time. Nick claims to have overheard Dylan and Cameron planning to fight Colin when he arrived home, so Nick sent Colin a text to inform him of this. Nick stated he was unsure of why the pair wanted to fight Colin, but had assumed it was due to the growing tension between Colin and Dylan about the rent money. Nick said that when Colin came home, Dylan tried to punch Colin, and Colin restrained him. Nick said he then went into another part of the home, and when he came back, Dylan was gone, and Colin had stated that Dylan had stormed out the back door. Colin's story is very similar to Nick's, stating that when he arrived back home, he told Dylan and Cameron to leave, and also told Dylan he was kicked out for good and could come back later to collect his belongings. Colin stated Dylan then left. Finally, Cameron gave his story, which stated that Colin had thrown both Dylan and himself out of the house. Cameron stated he went into the basement to gather his things and headed out the back door. Around 3:30 a.m., Colin said he called 911, stating that Colin had attacked him and that at that point Cameron was hiding from Colin. Phone records showed that during this time, Dylan had tried to call Cameron several times within a minute, to which Cameron never answered, as he said he was trying to call 911. Dylan would then try contacting his brother Derek through a messaging service, asking Derek for his phone number. However, Derek did not respond. This would be the last activity on Dylan's phone. On that cold night, 2 neighbors would also call 911, stating that there was a fight and a man was being beaten. It would be hours later when the police would respond to the call, and once at the house it was stated there was no answer, so they left. Erin said that she was supposed to go to Dylan's that night after she was finished hanging out with her friends, but her calls would go unanswered, so she assumed he had just gone to bed. Erin tried to contact Dylan all weekend, only to be met with silence. Erin would then call Colin, and Colin had stated that Dylan was not there. She asked to come collect some of her things, to which Colin refused to let her come over to the house. Dylan would miss his next work shift, and Dylan's parents were informed of his absence and contacted the Edmonton police to report him missing, but they were unable to, as they lived in Saskatchewan, so they would call Colin, asking him to report Dylan missing. At the start of the conversation, Colin refused to report Dylan missing, stating that he was not his babysitter, but eventually agreed to report Dylan missing. It had been about a week since Dylan was last seen, before Dylan's parents would arrive in Edmonton, and they found out that Colin had never reported Dylan missing. It was actually Erin who had reported Dylan missing after a few days of not being able to contact him. The initial search for Dylan was slow, and once investigators came to the home where Dylan was reportedly last seen, they found his wallet in the neighbor's yard. Dylan's family and friends would also set out to do their own search and handed out flyers with Dylan's picture on it. Investigators would also speak with Colin, Cameron, Nick, and Nick's girlfriend about the events of that night. Dylan's family found it odd that Colin never once helped look for Dylan and didn't seem to be worried about him either. Colin even made statements saying, "People go missing in Edmonton all the time," and that it was easy to hide bodies in construction sites. One of Dylan's aunts had stated that she had found blood-soaked paper towel in the home where Dylan lived with his cousins. However, none of the family believed that Colin, Nick, or anyone else in the home had anything to do with Dylan's disappearance. Weeks and months would go by without any new information on Dylan's disappearance, and soon those months turned into years. In 2017, the Edmonton police would change Dylan's case from a missing persons case to a homicide case. Every year on the anniversary of Dylan's disappearance, his family holds a vigil for him, and in later years, Colin and Nick would show up for the event. In 2013, Dylan's mother reached out to the Please Bring Me Home organization, which is a non-profit organization that helps solve cold cases, and there is a $40,000 reward for information on Dylan's case. Investigators believe that some have not been truthful in the case, or have not given information they may have, and that it is possible that Dylan's roommates may be involved in his disappearance. Dylan's family is still searching for answers as to what happened to Dylan on that cold October night, and not a day goes by that they don't think of him and miss him. At the time of Dylan's disappearance, he was 21 years old and weighed around 190 pounds, standing 5 foot 9 inches tall, with hazel eyes and brown hair. Dylan has both his ears pierced and is deaf in his right ear. He has a scar on his left cheek and his left eyebrow. Dylan was last seen in the area of 104th Street and 33rd Ave in Edmonton, Alberta on October 11th of 2008. If you have any information on Dylan's case, please contact 780-423-4567. Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS or tips@pleasebringmehome.com and help bring Dylan Koshman home. Well, that's it for this case. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of these strange days we live in.